Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another legit coding exercise, part 2. In part 1, we created one-dimensional arrays and array lists. And so in this one, we're going to create two-dimensional and multi-dimensional arrays and array lists. The trick to multi-dimensional arrays, here's the trick, is each new a two-dimensional array is just a 1D array of 1D arrays. So each new dimension is an array of another set of arrays. And a nice picture would be nice here. So let me get paint going and give you a nice picture. Oopsie. All right, so I have a paint here. I should be able to zoom in on this. Let's see, here we go, zoom. Oh, much better. So in Paint, in a one-dimensional array, it's working. I love touchscreens. In each element, we have a single value, like the value 1 or the value 2. In a 2D array, we have an outer array. And each outer array, we have a new array in the inside. So a 2D array is an array of arrays. And the dimension for this 2D array example that I have here is we have 1, 2, 3 in the outer dimension. So the first dimension is 3. I got 3 things in there. And the second dimension is 4. Each inner element, each of my 3 first elements, each of these guys has 4 inside elements. So I have 3. The outer array has 3 parts, 3 elements, and each element has 4 parts to it. So this is a 3x4 array. And this is the idea behind n-dimensional arrays. So you can make any number of arrays. Each step down, each new dimension is another array. So I have an array of arrays of arrays of arrays of arrays of simple elements. At the very end, we have simple elements. So here, in this example, the simple elements are these little inside elements, and they would have their values in them. For an int array, these would be numbers. So that's what we're going to make. That's the idea behind arrays of n-dimensional arrays. So let's see how we make that. The first way is if I have a list, I put a type in there, right? And this is going to be my 2D array lists. And I have this in the wrong place. Let me move this in the right place. It goes up here. And there's no space. And there's a space here. But we want to make a 2D array list of integers. And we saw earlier that the type of a one-dimensional array of integers is just the type of element that goes in those the type of the element. And so a one-dimensional array of integers, almost there. There we go. Has the type of the inside. So this is a one-dimensional array of integers. In order to make this a two-dimensional array, we have to say what that first dimension is. And that first dimension isn't the simple integers. It's an array list of integers. So this would be a list of lists of integers. You get it now? Yeah. And we can keep going this dimensions. We get the very last dimension is the primitive type. Each dimension above that is a container of what's below it. Does that make sense? Let's look at the picture again. So at the very end, we have a primitive type at the very tiny, at the finest detail. Each step up has whatever this whole thing is. So this whole thing is an array list of integers. And so this outer is an array list of array lists of integers. Does that make sense? So we see that in the code. When we create these things, a list of lists of integers. Now, when we create a reference variable, its default value is null. We have to make it new. So I can say my 2D array lists of integers equals a new array list of ArrayLists.
Dr. Schick,
Yes.
you're recording, right?
It is recording, yes.
I have to go through.
Okay, of integers. Integer. Did I get them all? Let's see. Blah, 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 blah. And we use a default constructor. Let's see if this works for me. Does not work. Why not? Oh, because it wants array lists inside. Fine. Array list. There it goes. Okay. All right, so now we've created a new array list of two-dimensional. And in order to set a value, we can just do an add, right? So I do my 2D array lists of integers dot add. Where's my add? Come on, show me the add. There we go. And in order to add, we have to add the right element. And the right element we're adding is a new array list of integers. And let's move this add down. So I can move the dot add down by just putting a space here, put a tab, make it go in. And semicolon. Let's see what we go here. Add is mad. Let's see. Method an add array and type list is not applicable for the arguments array list of integers. Oh, integers. There we go. Integer. Show them. Okay. So now we've added a single element, which itself is an array list of integers. And then into that array list, I could do my 2D array lists of integers dot, how do we do this? Get, I think it's get. How do we get this element? Get index 0 dot add, and we need an integer, new integer of 5. All right, so let's look at this sort of cascade of creation. The outer list is a list of lists. So the outer list is a list of array lists. I make the variable to hold that. I point to a new array list of this, so now I have an empty array list. I need to add a new element for this array list of lists. To add a new element, each element inside is a new array list of integers. So this adds an empty array list into the first element of the array list of array lists. Are you following me so far?
Yeah.
Okay, and then to add the element in the first slot of the array list of array lists, I do this one here. I get the old one out, and to it I add a new one. Now I don't know if get returns a copy or a reference to that element. And I think it's a reference to the element. Actually, it doesn't matter. It's a reference to the element, so it should work. So now this array list of array lists should have the element 5 in the first array list. So let's print it and see what we have. My 2D array lists of integers. And let's see what we get. It's running. Here it goes. So here we see a 2D array list of array lists. It has just a single array list in it with the value 5. We can add another array list or another value to that. Let's add another value. Let's do it here. We're going to copy line 127. Whoopsie. And we'll paste a new one here. So we get 0, add new integer. Let's do 2. So now the first array list has 5 and 3 in it. We can add more array lists here. Each one we add adds another array list. Let's add 2 more. So we have array list of 3 array lists, and the first array list in that array of 3 array lists has the values 5 and 3 in it. So far so good? And now the last one is we can add to any of these internal arrays, like this is array 0, this is array 1, this is array 2. To get to array 2, we use the syntax that we did here. We can go to array 2, and we can add like 23. Does that make sense? So this is how we use ArrayLists in this. I do not know if an array list has the square bracket operator, so let's find out. So if you don't know something, there's two ways you can find the answer. You could look it up off of the Google reference out of Oracle, or you could just try it and see what happens. So let's just try it and see what happens. My 2D array lists of integers dot, I'm sorry, two square brackets, of 1 of 0. And see if it likes this. Right now I'm getting a red bar. The red bar says it cannot be resolved. So array lists do not have square brackets. So instead you must use the gets to get to the different levels of the array list of array lists. So this does not work. So I tried it out. It makes it easier. Instead of going to look it up, I try it out. And if it doesn't work, okay, I know it doesn't work. Okay, the second thing I want to talk about, gentlemen, are you benefiting from this discussion? You are, okay. So it's too loud back there, gentlemen? If you're going to do a side talk in such a way that I cannot hear you. Thank you. So now we need 2D arrays, 2D simple arrays. And we use the same idea. 2D arrays or n-dimensional arrays are just arrays of arrays of arrays of arrays. And there's two ways to create arrays. Remember, we need the array type, the simple type. Let's do character. And this is an array of arrays equals, I'm sorry, we need to name it. This is my car array 2D. That will create a reference variable. Then we need to fill in the inside array. So say car array my car array 2D equals, I'm sorry, you don't need to state what it is. We just need to use the variable again. Equals a new character array of 20, let's do 5 by 10. 5 rows by 10 columns. So it needs both dimensions. Now once we create an array of arrays, we can fill it up. So let's fill it up. Let's see how I'm going to fill it up. I'm going to just do 2 for loops. For int rows equals 0. Rows is less than my character array 2D dot length rows plus plus. So this will iterate through all the rows of the array. The rows are the first dimension, and so we know there are 5 of them. So this length should be 5. We have a nested for loop for the columns. For int c equals 0. C is less than my character array 2D element 0 dot length C++. So let's look at these 2 loops. And we look at how we find the lengths of arrays, of multidimensional arrays. So this is a problem. Oops, I shouldn't stand up. This is a point that I would like you to watch for, because you will see this on the AP exam. You need length to pull the length, or how many elements are in each dimension of a 2-dimensional array. In this case, when I create it, the first dimension has 5, and the second dimension has 10. In the AP exam, you'll see them pass a unknown sized 2-dimensional array to a method. Shh, too loud. Jonathan, please. So you will not know the dimensions of the array. You will not have this 5, 10 anywhere to refer to. Instead, you must find the lengths of the right dimensions of the array. So you have the array name that comes in. To get the first dimension, you use dot length off of the array name. To get the second dimension, use dot length off of the first element of that first dimension. So each first dimension is an array. to get the length of an array, to get this 10, we need to get one of these arrays out of the overall array, the two-dimensional array. So to get an element out of a single-dimensional array, this is a one-dimensional array of one-dimensional arrays. To get that first one-dimensional array out, to find how big it is, we need to use that element. So you will see this on the AP exam. Again, we want to get n-dimensional arrays. So let's go back to the example, the pretty picture. The first dimension here, we need the indices out of it. We see a 0, a 1, and a 2. Length of the outside is going to give us a 3. On each inside one, this element here has 4 parts, and this is the array of 0. This whole thing is array of 0. To figure out how long it is, we need the array of 0 dot length, and that will give us the second dimension. So in order to get the second dimension, we need to get an element out of the first dimension. First dimension's length will give us how many of the big elements there are. Second dimension's length will give us how many dimensions are in each inner element. Do note that your arrays do not need to have the same amount of elements on each inner array. When you create the two, actually they do. For the simple arrays, they must have the same amount of elements here, the way they're stored. For the array lists, they do not. And that is it in a nutshell for how to get into. I could print this out, right? So we just want to print. So system.out.println, and this is my character array 2D of row of column. So we see nested for loop. The outer nest goes through each row. There are 5 of them. We find out how many by using length off of the array name itself. The inner row does all the columns for each row. And so for each row, we get a single row out. To find how many columns are, we do length off that single row. And then we do a statement for the inner for loop. When I print this, if I run it, we should see the default values for characters. Those are, I believe, nulls. And we should see a lot of nothings, because nulls don't print. Right, a lot of no's, or I guess it's new lines, right? Zoom, it's shot back down here. All right, so this shows us 2D arrays. We have about, we're almost done here, aren't we? We have like 2 minutes left. What I would like you to do for those 2 minutes, or for homework, let's do it for homework. Where are I? Here we go. Course modules? Yes, course modules. So in adhesive, actually I should stop recording too.